The box was velvet, deep burgundy velvet, the kind that catches light and holds it, sitting there on the white tablecloth between my water glass and his wine. We were at Marcello's, this Italian place in downtown Charlotte on Tryon Street, where they dim the lights low and the candles flicker against exposed brick walls, and you can barely hear yourself think over the soft jazz playing in the background. It was our 5th anniversary. 5 years married to Daniel John Whitmore, the man who swept me off my feet at a mutual friend's wedding, who proposed on a beach in Hilton Head at sunset, who promised me forever with tears in his eyes. Pull up close to me right now, wherever you are in this world, because I need you to understand something about this moment, about this night, about this gift that I thought was love, but turned out to be the breadcrumb that led me straight into the truth. Drop your city in the comments right now. Charlotte, Raleigh, Atlanta, Miami, Houston, Phoenix, Seattle, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, wherever you're watching from. And tell me what you're doing right this second. Are you getting ready for bed? Sitting in your living room? Taking a break at work? On your lunch break, scrolling through your phone? I want to know who's here with me tonight because this story is about to take us on a journey that'll make you question everything you think you know about the person sleeping next to you. My name is Gabrielle Christine Morrison Whitmore, though these days I've gone back to just Morrison. And 5 months ago, I was living what I thought was a perfect life in our 3-bedroom house in the Dilworth neighborhood, teaching 4th grade at Providence Day School, planning our summer vacation to the Outer Banks, and wearing a necklace that I believed was a symbol of my husband's love. That necklace was a lie. But that night at Marcello's, sitting across from Daniel in my navy blue dress from Nordstrom and heels I'd bought specifically for the occasion, watching him smile that smile that used to make my heart skip, I had no idea. 5 years, Daniel said, lifting his wine glass. Can you believe it's been 5 years? I couldn't. Sometimes it felt like yesterday we were saying our vows at the Mint Museum with 200 guests watching. Sometimes it felt like we'd been together forever. 5 good years, I said, touching my glass to his. He reached across the table and took my hand. His hands were always warm, always sure. Daniel was a commercial real estate developer, the kind of man who wore suits that cost more than my monthly salary, who closed million-dollar deals with a handshake and a smile, who never seemed rattled by anything. I got you something, he said, pulling that velvet box from his jacket pocket. My heart did that stupid flutter thing it always did when he surprised me. Daniel was good at surprises. Weekend trips I didn't know about until we were packing, flowers delivered to my classroom, little notes hidden in my lunch bag. I thought I was lucky. I thought I'd won the lottery when it came to husbands. Daniel, you didn't have to open it. Inside the box, nestled against white silk, was a necklace that took my breath away. Sterling silver, delicate as a whisper, with a pendant that caught the candlelight and scattered it across the table like tiny stars. The pendant was unusual, a circular design with intricate engravings I couldn't quite make out in the dim light, something almost Celtic-looking, ancient and meaningful. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "It's custom-made," Daniel said, and I could hear his pride in his voice. "Had it designed specifically for you. There's not another one like it in the world." He stood up, came around to my side of the table, and lifted the necklace from the box. His fingers were gentle as he clasped it around my neck, and I felt the cool silver settle against my collarbone like it had always belonged there. "Perfect," he said, kissing the top of my head. "You deserve this, Gabby. You deserve everything." I touched the pendant, felt the weight of it, the substance. This wasn't some cheap gift. This was thoughtful, expensive, personal. "I love it," I said, and I meant it. "I love you." "I love you more." We finished dinner in that warm bubble of anniversary happiness, talking about our future, about maybe starting to try for a baby, about the vacation house Daniel said he wanted to buy in the mountains, about growing old together. I wore that necklace home, wore it to bed that night actually, too enchanted by it to take it off, lay there in the dark with Daniel sleeping beside me, his breathing deep and steady, while I traced the engraving on the pendant with my fingertips, feeling loved, feeling chosen, feeling like the luckiest woman in Charlotte. I had no idea I was wearing evidence. The next morning, I wore it to church, wore it to brunch with my sister Maya afterward at Amelier's French bakery on Park Road. Maya noticed it immediately. "Oh my God, that's gorgeous," she said, leaning across the table to get a better look. "Where'd you get it?" "Anniversary gift from Daniel. He had it custom made." She picked up the pendant, examined it closely. She'd always been more observant than me, more suspicious of things that seemed too perfect. "The detail on this is insane. Must have cost a fortune." "Don't even ask. I don't want to know." She laughed and let it drop, but something in her expression made me uncomfortable, like she was going to say something else but changed her mind. I wore that necklace every single day for the next 4 months. Wore it to school, to the grocery store, to yoga class, to dinner parties with friends. It became part of me, part of my identity as Daniel's wife, proof that I was cherished. People complimented it constantly. "Where'd you get that? That's so unique. I love the design." I'd smile and say, "It was a gift from my husband, with so much pride you'd think I'd won an Academy Award." But then came the day everything changed. It was a Saturday in late August, hot as hell the way Charlotte gets in late summer, where the humidity makes you feel like you're swimming through the air. Daniel was at the office. He was always at the office on Saturdays, closing deals, managing properties, doing whatever commercial real estate developers do. I was at the farmer's market in uptown Charlotte buying tomatoes and fresh basil, planning to make caprese salad for dinner. Standing at a vendor's table, counting out cash, when I felt someone staring at me. I looked up. An older woman, maybe 65, was looking at my necklace with an expression I couldn't read. Not admiration, something else, something that made my skin prickle. "That's a beautiful necklace," she said, finally. "Thank you. It was a gift." She stepped closer, squinting at it. "May I—" Before I could answer, she'd reached out and gently lifted the pendant, turning it to examine the back side. Her face changed, went from curious to concerned in half a second. "Where did you get this?" asked her voice, sharp now. "My husband had it custom made." "Why?" She let the pendant drop back against my chest, but her eyes stayed locked in mine. "That clasp," she said quietly. "That's not standard. That's custom work, very custom work. I used to be a jeweler before I retired. I know that clasp design." "So?" "So that kind of clasp usually means something, usually means there's more to the piece than what you see. Sometimes there's a compartment, or an inscription, or—" She paused. "May I look at the clasp?" My heart was beating faster now, and I didn't know why. "Sure." She moved behind me, fiddled with the clasp for a moment, and I heard her make a small sound. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. "What?" I asked. "What is it?" When I turned around, her face was gentle, but her eyes were worried. "There's an engraving inside the clasp, a number and what looks like initials or a name. Did you know that was there?" My stomach dropped. "No. What does it say?" She pulled a pair of reading glasses from her purse, looked again. It says SDB 447293MW. MW? Those are his initials, John Whitmore. That's his middle name and last name. "Maybe," she said slowly, "but SDB usually means safety deposit box, and those numbers would be the box identification number." She handed me a business card, her old jeweler's card, faded and creased. "If I were you, honey, I'd want to know why your anniversary gift has a safety deposit box number engraved inside it. In my experience, people don't engrave those for sentimental reasons." She walked away before I could respond, disappearing into the Saturday market crowd, leaving me there with a bag of tomatoes in one hand and a sense of dread spreading through my chest like spilled ink. I drove home in a daze, the necklace feeling heavy around my neck. SDB 447293MW. What the hell did it? I didn't tell Daniel about the woman at the farmer's market, didn't mention it that night over my carefully prepared caprese salad that I could barely taste. Didn't bring it up the next day at church, or that Monday when he left for work at 7 in the morning like he always did, kissing my forehead and telling me he loved me. I should have asked him directly, should have just shown him the clasp and said, "Hey, what's this number?" But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way that woman had looked at me, with pity and concern. Maybe it was my own gut instinct starting to whisper things I didn't want to hear. Maybe it was the fact that in 5 years of marriage, Daniel had never mentioned having a safety deposit box. We had a joint checking account, a joint savings account. We filed our taxes together. We made financial decisions together, or at least I thought we did. Where would a safety deposit box fit into that picture? I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the engraving was a serial number from the jeweler. Maybe it was some kind of maker's mark. Maybe I was being paranoid and suspicious for no reason. But the unease had taken root, and it grew. I started noticing things I trained myself not to notice before. The way Daniel's phone was always face down on the table, the way he took calls in the other room, the way he had late meetings 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, the way he traveled for business more than seemed necessary for someone who dealt in Charlotte commercial real estate. "Going to Columbia for a couple days," he'd say. "Got a property deal I'm working on. Heading to Greensboro this weekend. Client needs FaceTime. Atlanta's calling. Should be back Tuesday." I'd always accepted it without question. Daniel was ambitious. He worked hard. That's who he was. But now I found myself wondering, was he really in Columbia? Was there really a client in Greensboro? What was he actually doing in Atlanta? "Stop it," I told myself. "You're being crazy. You're creating problems that don't exist." But I couldn't stop touching that clasp, couldn't stop feeling the engraved numbers under my fingertips, couldn't stop wondering. 2 weeks after the farmer's market, I did something I never thought I'd do. I waited until Daniel left for work, then I went into his home office. He had a whole room dedicated to his work, custom built-in shelves, a massive desk with 2 monitors, filing cabinets with locks on them. I'd never had a reason to go through any of it before, never wanted to. That was his space, his work, his business. But now I stood in the doorway looking at it all with new eyes, and I felt sick. The filing cabinets were locked. His computer required a password I didn't know. His desk drawers were mostly mundane: pens, staplers, business cards, old receipts. I was about to give up, feeling guilty for even looking, when I noticed a small leather notebook tucked behind a stack of real estate magazines on the bookshelf. It was worn, well used, the kind of notebook someone carries everywhere and fills with important information. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Inside were pages and pages of notes in Daniel's handwriting. Property addresses, names I didn't recognize, account numbers, phone numbers with no names attached. And on page 17, circled in red ink, SDB 447293, First Union Bank, Winston-Salem. My heart stopped. Winston-Salem? 2 hours away, a city Daniel had never mentioned having business in. I took a picture of the page with my phone, hand shaking so badly I had to take it 3 times before it was clear enough to read. Then I put the notebook back exactly where I'd found it, left his home office, and sat on our living room couch trying to remember how to breathe. First Union Bank in Winston-Salem had a safety deposit box registered under the number engraved inside my anniversary necklace. Why? What was in that box? And why would Daniel engrave that information inside a necklace he gave me for our 5th anniversary? My phone rang. Daniel's face filled the screen, that professional headshot I'd taken of him last year where he looked confident and successful and completely trustworthy. "Hey, baby," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Hey, listen, I have to work late tonight. Got a deal that's falling apart and I need to put out fires. Don't wait up, okay?" "Okay," I said. "Which property?" A pause. Just a half-second hesitation, but I caught it. "The development on South Boulevard, the one with the restaurant tenants." "Right. Okay. I love you. Love you too." He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, replaying that tiny pause, that microsecond of hesitation before he answered my question. He was lying. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew. That night I barely slept, lay there next to Daniel. He came home at midnight smelling like cologne and something else I couldn't identify, and stared at the ceiling while my mind raced. The next morning I called in sick to school, told them I had a migraine, which wasn't entirely a lie. My head was pounding from lack of sleep and the weight of suspicion. As soon as Daniel left for work, I got in my car and drove to Winston-Salem. 2 hours on I-40 West, my hands gripping the steering wheel, radio off, just the sound of my own breathing and the hum of tires on asphalt. I'd never been to Winston-Salem before, had no idea why Daniel would have business there, had no idea what I was even doing, driving to some bank to ask about a safety deposit box I had no legal right to access. But I had to know. The First Union Bank was downtown, a stately old building that looked like it had been there since the 1920s. I parked across the street and sat in my car for 20 minutes, working up the courage to go inside. What was I going to say? "Hi, my husband has a box here and I'd like to see what's in it." They'd laugh me out of the building. But I'd driven 2 hours. I wasn't leaving without answers. I walked in with my head high, necklace visible around my neck, and approached the first bank employee I saw, a young woman at a desk near the entrance. "Hi," I said, voice surprisingly steady. "I have a question about a safety deposit box." She smiled. "Of course. Do you have a box with us?" "My husband does, or I think he does. The number is 447293. She typed in her computer, frowned slightly. "That box is registered to MW Holdings. Are you affiliated with that company?" MW Holdings, John Whitmore Holdings, probably. "I'm John Whitmore's wife. This is his middle name and last name. I have identification." I pulled out my driver's license showing my married name, Gabrielle Morrison Whitmore. She looked at my ID, looked at her computer screen, looked back at me with an expression that was part sympathy, part discomfort. "Mrs. Whitmore, I can confirm that a box exists under that company name, but you're not listed as an authorized accessor. Only one person has access to that box, and according to our records, it's not you." My face got hot. "Can you tell me who does have access?" "I'm sorry, that's confidential client information." "Can you tell me what state the company is registered in?" A pause. "Delaware." Delaware, a state famous for its shell companies, its business-friendly laws, its ability to hide ownership structures. "When was the box opened?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, clearly debating how much she could say. Finally, 7 years ago. 7 years ago, 2 years before we got engaged. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Thank you for your help." I walked out of that bank feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. Daniel had a safety deposit box in a city 2 hours away, registered under a Delaware LLC that he'd opened before we even got engaged, that I had no access to, and he'd engraved that information inside a necklace he gave me for our 5th anniversary. I sat in my car outside that Winston-Salem bank for an hour, maybe more, watching people walk in and out, living their normal lives, while mine fell apart around me. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. "Hope you're feeling better. Let me know if you need me to bring anything home." I stared at those words. The casual concern, the husband checking on his sick wife. It all felt like performance now, lines from a script I hadn't known we were reading. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Google on my phone and typed MW Holdings LLC, Delaware. The search results were sparse. Delaware LLCs are designed for privacy, for obscurity. That's why people use them. But there were a few hits: mentions in property records, business registrations, legal filings. I clicked through page after page, taking screenshots of anything that mentioned MW Holdings. A property deed in Asheville, North Carolina, MW Holdings LLC purchaser. Another in Greenville, South Carolina, MW Holdings LLC owner. A third in Savannah, Georgia. I pulled up the property records for each one, all purchased within the last 7 years, all residential properties, not commercial real estate like Daniel supposedly specialized in. Houses, nice houses, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom homes in good neighborhoods. Investment properties, maybe? Rental properties? But if they were legitimate business investments, why hide them under a shell company? Why not tell your wife about them? I called Maya. My sister answered on the second ring, her voice bright and unsuspecting. "Hey, feeling better? You never take sick days." Maya, I need your help with something, and I need you not to ask why yet." Her tone changed instantly. "What's wrong?" "You still have that friend who works in real estate research, the one who helped you buy your condo?" "Jessica? Yeah, why?" "I need her to run some addresses for me, find out everything she can about who lives there, who pays the utilities, anything." Silence. Then, "Gabby, what's going on?" "Please, Maya, I'll explain everything, I promise. I just need this information first." "Send me the addresses." I texted her all 3 addresses from the property records. Within 2 hours, Jessica had sent back a detailed report that made me pull over to the side of the road because I couldn't see through my tears anymore. 147 Mountain Laurel Drive, Asheville, North Carolina. Utilities registered to Sarah McKinley, woman, age 34, moved in 4 years ago, no mortgage on record, house owned outright by MW Holdings. 628 Pelham Road, Greenville, South Carolina. Utilities registered to Margaret Chen, woman, age 29, moved in 3 years ago. Same situation, house owned by MW Holdings, no mortgage. 1849 Habisham Street, Savannah, Georgia. Daniel's name, on utilities, in Savannah. A city 3.5 hours from Charlotte, a city he'd never mentioned living in or visiting regularly, a city where he apparently had an entire house. I couldn't breathe, literally could not get air into my lungs, had to roll down the window and stick my head out, gasping like I was drowning. My husband had a house in Savannah with his name on the utilities, which meant he spent time there, which meant he had a reason to be there that he'd never told me about. I called Maya back. "Did you see?" she asked immediately. "Gabby, what the hell is this?" "I don't know," I whispered, "but I'm going to find out." "Do you want me to come over? I can leave work right now." "No, not yet. I need to think." I drove home in a fog, made it back to Charlotte by 4 in the afternoon, walked into my house, our house, and saw it completely differently. How many lies were these walls holding? I went straight to Daniel's office, past caring about respecting his space or his privacy. If he could have entire houses I didn't know about, I could go through his desk. The locked filing cabinets mocked me. I tried every possible combination I could think of: our anniversary, his birthday, my birthday, our address. Nothing worked. But the desk drawers were unlocked. I pulled them all out, dumped the contents on the floor, sorted through every receipt, every business card, every scrap of paper. In the bottom drawer, tucked inside a folder labeled Tax Documents 2019, I found a bank statement. Not from our regular bank, from a bank I'd never heard of, Carolina Trust and Savings. The statement was addressed to M.W. Holdings, LLC, care of a P.O. box in Rock Hill, South Carolina. The balance made my knees weak. $847,000 in an account I didn't know existed, under a company I had no access to, at a bank I'd never heard of. I took pictures of every page, the deposits, the withdrawals, the balance history going back 2 years. Regular deposits, $15,000 here, $20,000 there, $8,000, $12,000. Different amounts, but consistent. Money flowing into this secret account from sources I couldn't identify. And withdrawals, regular withdrawals to Residential Management Services and Property Care Solutions and Atlantic Utilities Group. Property management, utilities, the infrastructure of maintaining homes. Multiple homes, the Asheville house, the Greenville house, the Savannah house, and how many more that I hadn't found yet. I heard the garage door open. Daniel was home. I shoved everything back into the desk drawer, ran to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, tried to look like someone who'd spent the day in bed with a migraine instead of someone who just discovered her entire marriage might be a fraud. "Gabby?" Daniel's voice called from downstairs. "You home?" "Bathroom," I called back, voice shaking. "Be down in a minute." I stared at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, eyes red from crying, hair a mess. I looked like I'd been through hell, which I had. I touched the necklace around my neck, the beautiful custom-made gift that had led me down this rabbit hole. The silver felt cold now, sinister, like a mark of ownership rather than love. Was that what it was? A brand? A way for Daniel to keep track of his wife while he lived these other lives I knew nothing about? "Feeling any better?" Daniel appeared in the bathroom doorway, concerned husband face perfectly in place. I wanted to scream, wanted to throw a bank statement in his face, wanted to demand answers about Sarah McKinley and Margaret Chen and the house in Savannah with his name on the utilities. Instead, I smiled weakly. "A little, still have a headache." He kissed my forehead, and I had to force myself not to flinch. "Why don't you rest? I'll make us some dinner." "That would be nice." I watched him walk away. This man I'd shared a bed with for 5 years. This man I'd planned a future with. This man whose last name I carried. I didn't know him at all. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I went back downstairs and copied every single document I'd found, took pictures with my phone, uploaded them to a cloud storage account Daniel didn't know about. Then I opened my laptop and started researching. Who was Sarah McKinley? Who was Margaret Chen? What was the connection between them and my husband? I searched social media, I searched public records, I searched everything I could think of. Sarah McKinley, found her on Facebook, pretty brunette, maybe mid-30s like Jessica had said. Her profile said she was an elementary school teacher in Asheville, liked hiking and coffee and posting inspirational quotes. Relationship status? In a complicated relationship. Margaret Chen, found her on Instagram, stunning Asian woman, looked younger than 29, worked as a graphic designer, posted a lot of food photos and travel pictures. Recent photo from Greenville's downtown with the caption, "Home Sweet Home." I stared at their faces. Were these Daniel's, what? Mistresses? Other wives? Business partners I didn't know about? Why would he set them up in houses owned by his shell company? unless they didn't know, unless they thought they were in relationships with a man who loved them and bought them homes, like the way I thought I was in a relationship with a man who loved me and bought me a custom-made necklace. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I needed more information, needed proof of what I was beginning to suspect. I went back to Daniel's office, this time armed with a screwdriver. It took 20 minutes and some damage to the locks that I'd have to explain later, but I got them open. Inside the first cabinet, property deeds, not just for the 3 houses I'd found, for 7. 7 separate houses in 7 different cities across the Carolinas and Georgia, all owned by M.W. Holdings, LLC. Inside the second cabinet, folders, each one labeled with initials SM, MC, JW, RH, AL, KP, TC. 7 folders, 7 sets of initials, 7 women? I pulled out the folder marked SM and opened it. Sarah McKinley, complete dossier, copy of her driver's license, her social security number, employment records, background check, medical records, photos of her, some that looked like they were taken without her knowledge, and a timeline. First contact date, first date, relationship progression, move-in date. This wasn't a relationship. This was a file, like Daniel was running surveillance on her. My stomach turned. I opened the next folder. Margaret Chin, same thing. Complete background, timeline, surveillance photos, documents. I opened all 7 folders. 7 women, all documented, all tracked, all living in houses Daniel owned through his shell company. And at the bottom of the filing cabinet, in a folder labeled simply Primary, I found a file on myself. Gabrielle Morrison Whitmore, my maiden name. Background check dated from before we met. My teaching records, my credit score, photos of me I'd never known were taken. A timeline starting with Target identified and ending with marriage secured. Target identified, marriage secured. Like I was a mission, like I was a project, like our entire relationship had been planned and executed with the same cold precision as whatever the hell he was doing with these other 6 women. I vomited into his office trash can, sat on the floor of his office at 3 a.m, crying and shaking, surrounded by evidence that my husband was not who he claimed to be, and our marriage was not what I thought it was. Upstairs, Daniel slept peacefully in our bed, snoring softly, dreaming whatever dreams monsters have. And around my neck, the necklace with the safety deposit box number engraved inside felt like a noose. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat on the floor of Daniel's office until the sun came up, reading through every folder, photographing every document, trying to understand the scope of what I'd discovered. By the time I heard Daniel stirring upstairs, I had the filing cabinets locked again, poorly, but locked, had all the folders back in place, had cleaned the vomit from his trash can, had made myself look like I'd spent a restless night with a migraine, not like I'd spent it uncovering my husband's secret empire. "You're up early?" Daniel said, finding me in the kitchen pretending to make coffee with shaking hands. Couldn't sleep, head still pounding. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, kissed my neck right where the necklace lay, and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. "Maybe you should take another day off," he murmured. "Stay home and rest." "Maybe," I said. He left for work at 7:30 like always, kissed me goodbye at the door like always, told me he loved me like always. I watched his Mercedes pull out of the driveway and waited 5 minutes to make sure he was really gone. Then I called Maya. "I need you to come over right now. Bring your laptop." She arrived 20 minutes later, let herself in with her spare key, found me still in my pajamas sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed photos and documents. "Oh, God, Gabby, what is all this?" Maya breathed, staring at the evidence spread across the table. My husband has 7 houses in 7 different cities, all owned through a Delaware shell company I didn't know about. He has 7 women living in those houses. He has detailed files on all of them and on me, like we're all part of some kind of project he's managing. Maya sat down hard in the chair across from me. Are you serious? I wish I wasn't. I showed her everything, the property deeds, the bank statements, the folders with timelines and surveillance photos, the file on me labeled primary with marriage secured noted like a completed objective. What the hell is he doing? Maya whispered. Is he running some kind of, operation? Scam? Is he like a con artist? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I pulled up the bank statement on my laptop. Look at these deposits, regular payments into MW Holdings account from different sources, but the source names are all just numbers and codes. I can't figure out where the money's actually coming from. Maya leaned over, studied the screen. Those look like wire transfer codes. International wire transfer codes, maybe. Can you access the actual bank account online? I don't have login information. Did you find anything else in his office? Any notebooks? Any password lists? Anything? I thought about the leather notebook I'd found weeks ago. Went back to Daniel's office, found it again behind the real estate magazines. This time, I read through every page carefully. Property addresses, account numbers, meeting notes with people whose names I didn't recognize. And on page 43, written in Daniel's careful handwriting, Carolina Trust and Savings, login is MW Holdings 447, password is Gabrielle 2019 ! My name. He'd used my name as part of his password. I don't know if that made it better or worse. I typed the login information into the Carolina Trust and Savings website, half expecting it not to work, half terrified it would. The account opened. Suddenly, I had access to everything, 2 years of transaction history, every deposit, every withdrawal, every transfer, statements going back to 2022. Maya and I spent the next 3 hours going through it all, creating a spreadsheet, tracking patterns. The deposits came from offshore accounts with names like Meridian International Services and Atlantic Capital Group and Pacific Holdings Trust, shell companies within shell companies like nesting dolls of deception. But the withdrawals were more telling. Regular payments to the 7 women's utility accounts, regular transfers to something called Residential Care Management LLC, which a quick Google search revealed was a property management company that didn't seem to actually exist beyond a placeholder website. And monthly payments, large ones, $25,000 each, to 7 different Venmo accounts. I clicked on the transaction details. The Venmo handles were all variations of women's names: at Sarah M., at Maggie Chen, at Jessica W. 2019, at Rachel H. NC, at Amanda Lopez, at Katie Park, at Tina Chen. He was paying them $25,000 a month each, 7 women, $175,000 a month total. Holy shit, Maya whispered. Is he running like even know what to call this, a kept women operation? I felt sick again. I need to talk to them, to the women. I need to know if they know about each other, if they know about me. How are you going to find them? Maya asked. I pulled up Sarah McKinley's Facebook profile again. I'm going to message her, tell her I'm Daniel's wife, and ask if we can talk. Gabby, that's crazy. What if she doesn't know? What if you blow up her whole life? My whole life is already blown up, I said quietly, and if she doesn't know, she deserves to. I opened Facebook Messenger and typed, Hi, Sarah. My name is Gabrielle Morrison Whitmore. I'm married to Daniel Whitmore. I believe you know him. I found some things recently that have made me concerned, and I was hoping we could talk. Please call me at my number. I'm not angry with you. I just need to understand what's happening. I sent it before I could talk myself out of it. Then I found Margaret Chen on Instagram and sent her a similar message. Then Jessica Williams on Facebook, Rachel Henderson on LinkedIn, Amanda Lopez on Twitter, Katie Park on Instagram, Tina Chen on Facebook. 7 women, 7 messages, 7 potential phone calls that would either confirm my worst fears or prove I was losing my mind. What if they tell Daniel? Maya asked. Then they tell him, let him know I know, let him know I'm coming for answers. My phone rang 15 minutes later. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. Hello? Is this Gabrielle? A woman's voice, young, scared sounding. Yes? Who is this? Sarah McKinley. I got your message. A pause, then, you said you're married to Daniel? Yes, 5 years. We live in Charlotte. Silence. Long, horrible silence. Then, oh my God, you're actually real. My heart stopped. What do you mean? He told me you existed. Daniel told me. But he said we were separated. He said the marriage was over and we were just waiting for the right time to file papers. He said, her voice broke. He said we were going to be together. The room spun. How long have you been with him? 4 years, since 2020. We met at a coffee shop in Asheville where I was working. He swept me off my feet. He was so attentive, so romantic. He said he'd never felt this way about anyone. And when he bought you other things too? Jewelry? Gifts? Yes, how did you know? Because he did the same thing to me. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know about you until a few days ago. Are there others? Her voice was barely a whisper. You said you sent messages to multiple people. I think so. I found evidence of 6 other women, 7 total, including you. She made a sound like she'd been punched. 7? 7 women? I'm still trying to figure out what's happening, but I wanted you to know the truth about me, about him, about whatever this is. I need to go, she said suddenly. I need to think. I can't. Sarah, wait. She hung up. 20 minutes later, Margaret Chen called, then Jessica Williams, then Rachel Henderson. The stories were all variations of the same theme. Met Daniel through what seemed like coincidence. Coffee shop, gym, networking event, art gallery, grocery store. Charming, attentive, swept them off their feet. Told them he was separated or divorced or between relationships. Moved fast, intense romance, declarations of love, promises of a future together. Then the generous gift. Let me buy you a house. Let me take care of you. You deserve security. Monthly stipends deposited into their accounts, explained as either, I just want to help, or payment for helping with my business, or investment in our future. None of them knew about each other. None of them knew Daniel had a current active marriage. None of them knew about the files he kept on them. By the end of the day, I'd talked to 5 of the 7 women. Amanda and Katie hadn't called back yet, but the pattern was clear. Daniel was running multiple relationships simultaneously. 7 women in 7 cities, all believing they were in exclusive relationships with him, all financially dependent on him through the houses and the monthly payments, all kept carefully separate and unaware of each other. Until now. What are you going to do? Maya asked. She'd stayed all day, ordering food neither of us ate, keeping me grounded while my world fell apart. I'm going to that safety deposit box in Winston-Salem, the one with the number engraved in my necklace. There's something in there he wanted close to me, something important enough to hide inside a gift. I need to know what it is. How are you going to get access? They told you weren't authorized. I touched the necklace. I have an idea. The next morning, I called out sick again, sent Daniel off to work with a kiss and a lie, then drove straight to Winston-Salem. This time, I had a plan. I walked into First Union Bank dressed in my best teacher clothes, professional, trustworthy, not threatening. Approached a different employee than last time, a middle-aged man at a desk marked Account Services. "Good morning," I said, setting my purse on his desk. "I need help with a safety deposit box access issue." "Of course. What's the box number?" 447393. It's registered to MW Holdings, LLC, my husband's company, but I'm not listed as an authorized accessor, and I need to be. He's traveling internationally for the next month, and there are documents in that box I need for our taxes. A reasonable lie, a boring, bureaucratic lie that wouldn't raise alarms. The man typed into his computer, "I see the box. Unfortunately, to add you as an authorized accessor, we need the current authorized person to come in and sign the paperwork or provide written authorization notarized with their signature." "My husband is in Singapore right now for business," I said, and I let my voice get stressed, frustrated in the way people get when dealing with bureaucracy. "We didn't realize until yesterday that I'd need access. Is there really no way? I have our marriage certificate. I have proof that I'm his wife. The company is his." He looked sympathetic but unmoved. "I understand the frustration, but bank policy is very strict about safety deposit boxes. They're designed to be secure, which means we can't just add accessors without proper authorization." I nodded like I accepted this, like I was giving up. Then I reached up and unclasped the necklace from around my neck. "He gave this to me for our anniversary," I said softly, holding it out. "The box number is engraved in the clasp. Would you mind looking at it?" The man took the necklace, examined the clasp with a small magnifying glass from his desk drawer. I watched his expression change as he read the engraving. "That's unusual," he said slowly. "Why would someone engrave a box number in jewelry?" "I've been wondering the same thing, honestly. I think maybe he wanted me to have access in case of emergency, like a backup key. But I need to get into the box to be sure. Is there any way that engraving could serve as some kind of authorization?" He looked at me for a long moment, then at the necklace, then back at his computer screen. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to speak to my manager. One moment, please." He disappeared into a back office with my necklace. I sat there, heart pounding, praying that my gamble would work. 10 minutes later, he returned with an older woman in a business suit and my necklace. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Patricia Hayes, branch manager. Thomas here showed me the unusual engraving. This is quite an irregular situation. While the engraving itself doesn't constitute legal authorization, the fact that your husband gave you jewelry with the box number engraved in your anniversary suggests intent to provide access. Additionally, you've provided proof of marriage, and frankly, the circumstances are concerning enough that we want to ensure everything is above board." My heart leapt. "Does that mean—" "It means I'm going to make an executive decision. I'll allow you supervised access to verify the contents of the box. If we find anything concerning, evidence of fraud, illegal activity, anything that would require us to freeze the account, we'll have to take appropriate action. But you deserve to know what's in a box whose box number your husband engraved in your anniversary gift. It's not exactly standard procedure, but these aren't standard circumstances." 5 minutes later, I was following Patricia Hayes into the vault. She used her key and the bank's master key to open 447393, pulled out a long metal drawer and set it on the table in the private viewing room. "I'll give you privacy," she said. "Take your time." The door closed. I was alone with whatever secrets Daniel had been hiding. I opened the box with shaking hands. Inside, 3 passports, all with Daniel's photo, all with different names: Daniel John Whitmore, John Daniel Winston, David Michael Warren. 3 complete identities, all him. A stack of birth certificates, not just his, but fake ones, generating background for the false identities: social security cards, driver's licenses from different states, an entire identity kit for each persona. And underneath that, documents. So many documents. I spread them across the table, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Marriage certificates, 7 of them.
Sarah McKinley, married to John Daniel Winston in Asheville, North Carolina, 2020. Margaret Chen, married to David Michael Warren in Charleston, South Carolina, 2021. Jessica Williams, married to Daniel John Whitmore in Charlotte, North Carolina, 2018, a year before he married me. Rachel Henderson, Amanda Lopez, Katie Park, Tina Chen, all married to one of Daniel's alternate identities in different cities, different years. 7 women, 7 marriages, all legal, all recorded, all active.
I was wife number 4, not the only Mrs. Whitmore. One of 7 Mrs. Whitmores, or Winstons, or Warrens, depending on which identity he'd used. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. 7 marriages, 7 women who thought they were exclusively married to this man, 7 households being supported by whatever money Daniel was funneling through his offshore accounts and shell companies. I kept digging through the box. Life insurance policies, 7 of them, each wife insured for $2 million, with Daniel, under whatever name he'd married them under, as the sole beneficiary. Bank account information for accounts I didn't recognize in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Panama, offshore accounts holding, according to the statements, over $15 million combined. And at the very bottom of the box, a ledger, handwritten in Daniel's neat script, a record of every payment made to every wife, every expense for every household, every insurance premium paid, and notes in the margins, SM becoming suspicious, MC asking too many questions, TC requesting more money monthly. We weren't wives to him, we were investments, assets, income streams somehow, though I still didn't understand how. Then I saw it, a contract, multiple copies actually, all identical, all signed by Daniel under his various names. Marriage Beneficiary Trust Agreement. I read through it. My regal knowledge from teaching high school government class is barely enough to parse the language. Essentially, Daniel had set up trusts that would pay out to each wife's family upon her death, but the trusts were structured in a way that required Daniel's active management and approval of distributions. If a wife died while married to him, he controlled the payout. If she tried to divorce him, certain penalty clauses kicked in that would leave her with almost nothing and him with everything. It was a trap. A financial trap designed to keep women bound to him, dependent on him, unable to leave without losing everything. And the life insurance policies with him as beneficiary? If any of us died while married to him, he'd collect $2 million, tax-free. 7 wives times $2 million each. That was $14 million in potential life insurance payouts. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. Was that the end game? Was he planning to, what, kill us? Stage accidents? Wait for natural causes? No, that was crazy. That was too dark. There had to be another explanation. But as I looked at all the evidence spread across that table, the fake identities, the marriage certificates, the insurance policies, the offshore accounts, the careful record-keeping of every expense, I couldn't escape the obvious conclusion. Daniel wasn't just a cheater. He wasn't just a con artist. He was running some kind of sophisticated long-term scheme where multiple marriages to multiple women served some financial purpose I didn't fully understand yet. And the necklace he'd given me with the box number engraved inside? Maybe it wasn't a romantic gesture. Maybe it was insurance for him. If I ever got suspicious, if I ever came looking, I'd find this box. I'd see the evidence of his other marriages. I'd panic, maybe confront him privately, maybe try to leave quietly. But I wouldn't go to the police, because I'd see my own marriage certificate among the pile, see my own life insurance policy, see my own name in his ledger, and I'd realize that whatever he was doing, I was implicated in it too, whether I knew it or not. The necklace was a warning and a leash. Find out the truth, but know you're trapped by it.
Except he'd miscalculated, because I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to burn his whole empire to the ground. I took photos of everything, every passport, every marriage certificate, every life insurance policy, every bank statement, every page of the ledger, hundreds of photos documenting every piece of Daniel's fraud. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it, closed the box, and walked out of that viewing room. Patricia Hayes was waiting. "Everything all right, Mrs. Whitmore?" "No," I said honestly. "Everything is very far from all right, but thank you for giving me access. I found what I needed." "Do we need to involve authorities?" "Not yet, but soon. I need to talk to a lawyer first." She nodded slowly. "I understand. Take care of yourself." I drove back to Charlotte in a daze, my mind racing through possibilities and plans. I needed a lawyer, not just any lawyer, a lawyer who specialized in fraud, in complex financial crimes, in marriages that weren't what they seemed. But first, I needed to talk to the other wives, all of them, together. I created a group chat that night, added all 7 phone numbers, mine included. "My name is Gabrielle. I'm married to Daniel Whitmore. So are all of you. He's married to 7 women simultaneously using 3 different identities. I have proof. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., video call. I'll send a link." The responses came fast. Sarah, "Oh my God." Margaret, "This can't be real." Jessica, "I'm going to sick." Rachel, "How is this possible?" Amanda, "Is this a joke?" Katie, "Who are you?" Tina, "I want to see the proof." I sent photos, the marriage certificates, the passports, the life insurance policies with our names on them. Then silence. Long, horrible silence, as 7 women processed the fact that their marriages were frauds and their husband was a criminal. Finally, Sarah, "I'm in for tomorrow's call." One by one, they all agreed. The next day, Daniel left for work at 7:30 a.m. like usual. I waited until 8, then set up my laptop in the living room and started the video call. Slowly, faces appeared on screen. 7 women, all roughly my age, all pretty in different ways, all looking shell-shocked and devastated. "Hi," I said, not knowing how else to start. "I'm Gabrielle. I'm married to Daniel, or the man we all know as Daniel, for 5 years. I live in Charlotte. I'm a 4th grade teacher. Until last week, I thought I had a normal, happy marriage." Sarah. "I'm Sarah, the brunette from Asheville. 4 years married. Elementary teacher, too. I thought I was helping him through his divorce." Margaret. 3 years. Graphic designer. He told me he'd never been married before. Jessica. 6 years. Nurse. He told me his first wife died in a car accident. Rachel. 3 years. Accountant. He told me he was divorced with no kids. Amanda. 2 years. Marketing consultant. He told me his ex-wife took everything in the divorce. Katie. 3 years. Real estate agent. He told me he'd been engaged once, but she cheated. Tina. 4 years. Software engineer. He told me his previous relationship ended because she wanted kids and he didn't. 7 different backstories, 7 different versions of Daniel's history, 7 completely incompatible lies that would have revealed his deception immediately if any of us had ever compared notes, which is exactly why he'd kept us all separated. "I found more," I said quietly. "Life insurance policies, 2 million each with him as beneficiary, bank accounts in offshore havens, a ledger tracking every penny he spends on each of our..."
Patricia Chan met with all 7 of us the following week at her law office in downtown Charlotte. She was in her early 40s, sharp as a knife, with the kind of presence that made you feel both protected and slightly terrified. She'd reviewed all our documents beforehand, and when we sat down in her conference room, some of us in person, others via video call, her first words were, "This is the most complex marriage fraud case I've ever seen." "Can you help us?" I asked. "Yes, But you need to understand something. Taking this to court means exposing everything publicly. Your marriages, your families, your communities. Everyone will know. The media will eat this story alive. Man secretly married to 7 wives is headline gold. Are you all prepared for that level of exposure? We looked at each other, these 6 strangers who'd become sisters in trauma over the past week. I'm prepared, Jessica said. I'm a nurse. I help people. If exposing my humiliation helps other women recognize these red flags and avoid this happening to them, it's worth it. I'm in, Margaret agreed. I spent 3 years thinking I was building a life with someone who loved me. Other women need to know these men exist. One by one, we all agreed. Privacy was a luxury we could no longer afford. Justice mattered more. Patricia nodded. All right, here's what we're going to do. First, we file a criminal complaint with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department and simultaneously with the FBI. The interstate nature of his crimes, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, that triggers federal jurisdiction. What charges? Rachel asked. Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity fraud, bigamy in multiple states, tax evasion, money laundering through the shell companies, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. That last one is the big one. The life insurance policies with him as beneficiary on 7 different wives, combined with the trust agreements designed to trap you in the marriages, establishes intent. We can prove he set up a financial structure designed to profit from your deaths. Will he go to prison? Asked Amanda. If we can make everything stick, 25 to 30 years minimum. Federal prison, not state, no parole. The thought should have made me happy. Instead, I just felt hollow. What about the money? Katie asked. Can we get back what he took from us? The monthly payments he made to you all could be classified as proceeds of fraud, but more importantly, we can petition to have all his assets frozen immediately upon arrest. The offshore accounts, the shell company accounts, the properties, everything. Then, during the trial, we prove it was all acquired through fraudulent means, and the court can order restitution. You'd split whatever assets remain after legal fees and penalties. How much are we talking about? Tina asked. Patricia consulted her notes. Based on the documents you provided, I estimate his total liquid assets at around $15 million in offshore accounts, plus another $3 million in the shell company accounts, plus the equity in the 7 properties, roughly $2.5 million combined. Call it $20 million total, give or take. $20 million, divided 7 ways, roughly $2.8 million each. It wouldn't undo the trauma, wouldn't give us back the years we'd lost, but it was something. When do we do this? I asked. Tomorrow. We'll file the complaints first thing in the morning. The FBI will want to interview each of you separately. That'll take a few days to coordinate. Once they have enough to move forward, they'll execute arrest warrants and freeze your assets simultaneously. He won't see it coming until it's too late. He comes home tonight, I said quietly. After tomorrow, he'll know everything. Does that scare you? Patricia asked gently. Yes, but I'm more scared of letting him get away with it. That night, I waited for Daniel to come home, sat in our living room in the dark, wearing the necklace he'd given me, the necklace that unraveled his entire empire. He walked in at 8:30, loosening his tie, calling out, "Gabby, you home?" Living room. He found me there, turned on the light, smiled that smile I used to love. "Hey, baby, why are you sitting in the dark?" "I was thinking," I said. "About what?" He sat down next to me on the couch, put his hand on my knee. The touch made my skin crawl. About trust, about how marriage is supposed to be built on trust and honesty. Something flickered in his eyes, wariness maybe. Of course, we have that. Do we? I turned to face him directly. Daniel, is there anything you want to tell me? Anything you think I should know? Anything you've been keeping from me? The wariness intensified. What are you talking about? I reached up and unclasped the necklace, held it out between us. This necklace you gave me, it's beautiful.
Custom made, you said. It is. With an engraving inside the clasp? Did you know about that? He went very still. What engraving? SDB 447293MW, a safety deposit box number at First Union Bank in Winston-Salem. I went there, Daniel. I saw what's inside. The blood drained from his face. I know about Sarah, and Margaret, and Jessica, Rachel, Amanda, Katie, and Tina. I know about the 3 passports, the 7 marriage certificates, the life insurance policies, the offshore accounts. I know everything. He stood up fast, backing away from me. Gabby, listen to me. This can be fixed. We can work this out. I have money, lots of money. We can disappear together, start over somewhere new. You don't have to do anything hasty. I'm not going anywhere with you, and tomorrow morning, neither are you. The FBI is filing charges: wire fraud, identity fraud, bigamy, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Your assets are being frozen. Your passports are being seized. It's over. He stared at me, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. Then he ran, grabbed his keys, bolted for the door, and I heard his car start in the driveway, heard him speed away into the night. I called Patricia immediately. He ran. I told him we knew everything, and he ran. Where would he go? I don't know, but he has multiple identities, multiple bank accounts. He could be heading for an airport right now. I'm calling my FBI contact. We'll move the timeline up. They'll issue an immediate bolo and start tracking his credit cards and phones. Stay where you are, lock your doors. An officer will come by to take your statement and make sure you're safe. I spent that night in my house alone, doors locked, lights on, jumping at every sound. But I wasn't scared.
Daniel was running, which meant he knew he was caught. And running meant he'd left evidence behind. Evidence the FBI could use to track him down. He'd been so careful for so long, so meticulous in his deception. But in the end, panic made him sloppy. At 6:47 a.m., Patricia called. They got him, Charlotte Airport, trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands under his David Michael Warren identity. He's in custody. I sat down hard on my kitchen floor and cried. Relief, anger, grief, vindication, everything I'd been holding in for days came pouring out. Gabby, Patricia's voice was gentle through the phone. You did it. You all did it. He's going to face justice for what he did. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for believing us. Thank you for being brave enough to come forward. Most women in your situation would have hidden it, tried to handle it privately, let him get away with it out of shame. You chose different. You chose to fight. After I hung up, I sat there on my kitchen floor as the sun rose, washing light across the walls of the house I thought was my home. It wasn't my home. It had never been my home. It was just another property in Daniel's portfolio, another asset in his scheme. But I was going to take it and every other asset he'd built with his fraud, and I was going to split it with the 6 other women he'd victimized. We would rebuild. The media found out within 48 hours. Charlotte man arrested for marrying 7 women hit every major news outlet. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, local stations from all 7 cities where we lived. The story was too sensational to ignore. Reporters camped outside my house, outside all our houses. Our names, our photos, our stories, suddenly public property for the world to judge. The first few days were hell. My school put me on paid leave, saying they needed to assess the situation. My principal was sympathetic, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. Is this too much scandal for a private school to weather? My parents called from Florida, confused and horrified. "How did you not know?" my mother kept asking, as if I'd been deliberately blind instead of systematically deceived. My friends divided into two camps, those who supported me unconditionally and those who quietly disappeared, uncomfortable with the messiness of my life. But the other wives, my sister wives in trauma, as Tina jokingly but darkly called us, they understood in ways nobody else could. We stayed in constant contact, group texts throughout the day, video calls every evening, a shared support system built on the unique understanding of having loved the same man, believed the same lies, and discovered the truth together. Sarah lost her teaching job. The school board in Asheville decided a teacher involved in such a scandal wasn't appropriate around children. Never mind that she was a victim. Never mind that she'd done nothing wrong. The optics were bad, so she was gone. Margaret's graphic design clients dropped her one by one. Apparently, being unknowingly married to a con artist made her untrustworthy in their eyes. Jessica kept her nursing job. Hospitals are more forgiving or more desperate for workers, but the whispers followed her everywhere. Rachel's accounting firm stood by her, thankfully. They issued a statement supporting her and condemning Daniel. Amanda's marketing consulting business actually grew. She turned the attention into publicity, going on podcast interviews talking about red flags in relationships and how con artists choose their victims. She was transforming her pain into power. Katie used her real estate expertise to help us all figure out what to do with the houses we lived in. Technically, since they were owned by MW Holdings and that company's assets were frozen, we couldn't sell them or even legally stay in them long term. But the courts were sympathetic. They allowed us to remain as temporary occupants until the assets were liquidated and restitution was determined. Tina, the software engineer, created a website for us, 7wives.org, a place to tell our stories in our own words, to control the narrative instead of letting the media define us. It went viral. Within a week, we had thousands of messages from other women who'd experienced similar deceptions, if not quite on the same scale. We weren't alone. We'd never been alone. We'd just been isolated by men who understood that separation equals control. The FBI investigation moved forward quickly. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue that the marriages weren't fraudulent because he genuinely cared about all of us, but that defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. The cold, calculated ledger tracking us like inventory, the insurance policies, the trust agreements designed to trap us. They also discovered where his money really came from. Not real estate, not business consulting, not any of the legitimate-sounding careers he'd claimed. Insurance fraud, specifically a series of insurance scams over the past 15 years where he'd set up shell companies, taken out massive policies, staged thefts or disasters, and collected payouts. He'd frauded insurance companies out of approximately $12 million over his career as a con artist. The 7 marriages were supposed to be his retirement plan. Set up multiple wives, collect life insurance payouts naturally over time as we aged and inevitably some of us died before him, and live off that money for the rest of his life. It was patient, long-term, and absolutely psychopathic. "He never loved any of us," Margaret said during one of our evening video calls, voice flat. "He's literally incapable of it. We were just long-term investments to him." "We were real to each other, though," Sarah said softly. "Our love for him was real, even if his love for us wasn't. That matters. Our capacity to love, to trust, to believe in partnership, that's our humanity. I'm angry I gave my humanity to someone who didn't deserve it. Then we take it back, Amanda replied firmly. We take back our humanity, our trust, our capacity for love. We just give it to people and purposes that actually deserve it. The trial date was set for 6 months out. Federal cases move faster than state cases, especially when the death defendant was caught literally trying to flee the country. Daniel's lawyer approached Patricia about a plea deal. If Daniel pled guilty to all charges, they'd recommend 20 years instead of 30. We huddled on video call to discuss it. 20 years, Katie said. He'd be 73 when he got out. Basically his whole life gone. But 30 years would be better, Tina countered. Every additional year he's locked up is a year he can't hurt another woman. A trial means we'd have to testify, Jessica pointed out, means we'd have to sit in a courtroom and recount every painful detail while lawyers try to make us look stupid or complicit. Are we prepared for that? I am, I said. I want him to hear from each of us directly what he did to our lives. I want that on the record forever. In the end, we voted 4-3 in favor of rejecting the plea deal and going to trial. Patricia told Daniel's lawyer, no deal. We'd see him in court. Meanwhile, the asset freeze was devastating to Daniel. He couldn't access any of his offshore accounts, couldn't make bail, which had been set at $5 million, couldn't hire a better lawyer than the overworked public defender assigned to his case. Everything he'd built through deception was now being used against him. The houses were liquidated, all 7 sold at market rate. That money went into an escrow account pending the trial's outcome. The offshore accounts were forensically audited, every dollar traced to its source. Tax authorities in 3 countries were now investigating him for tax evasion on the income he'd never reported. His credit was destroyed. His reputation was destroyed. His 3 identities were now permanently flagged in federal databases. Daniel John Whitmore, John Daniel Winston, and David Michael Warren would never be able to hide again. As for us 7 women, we started rebuilding. Sarah moved back home with her parents in Asheville while she looked for a new teaching position. It took 4 months, but eventually she found a school that appreciated her resilience. Margaret pivoted her graphic design work to focus on nonprofits and advocacy organizations. Her business came back slowly, but with clients who valued her for who she was, not just her portfolio. Jessica kept her nursing job but started volunteering with a domestic violence organization, using her experience to
Rachel went back to her accounting firm with a promotion. Her boss told her that anyone who could survive what she'd survived and still show up every day was the kind of person he wanted leading his team. Amanda's podcast and consulting business exploded. She wrote a book proposal, The 7 Wives, How One Man's Fraud United 7 Women. Publishers were bidding on it. Katie used her real estate knowledge to help other women extricate themselves from financially complicated relationships. She became a go-to expert for divorce lawyers dealing with hidden assets. Tina expanded 7wives.org into a full resource hub for fraud victims. She quit her corporate tech job to run it full-time, funded by donations and speaking fees. And me? I went back to teaching. My school reinstated me after the FBI made it clear I was a victim, not a perpetrator. My 4th graders welcomed me back with cards and hugs and questions I couldn't fully answer. "Miss Morrison, where were you?" one little girl asked. "I was dealing with some grown-up problems," I told her, "but I learned something important.
When bad things happen, you can either hide from them or face them head on. And facing them head on, especially with help from people who care about you, is always the braver choice. She nodded solemnly. Your mom says you're really brave. Your mom is very kind. But maybe she was right. Maybe we were all brave, 7 women who'd loved deeply. The trial lasted 3 weeks. All 7 of us testified. One by one, we sat in that witness stand in the federal courthouse in Charlotte and told our stories. Sarah described how Daniel, John Winston to her, had swept her off her feet at a coffee shop, promised her forever, bought her a house, and made her believe she was the center of his world, while he was simultaneously doing the exact same thing to 6 other women. Margaret talked about the romance, the gifts, the way he'd made her feel seen and special, and then the devastating moment when she learned it was all performance, all calculation, all part of a long-term insurance fraud scheme. Jessica, who'd been married to him longest, spoke about the 6 years she'd spent planning a future with a man who was planning to profit from her death. Her voice broke multiple times, but she never stopped talking. Rachel, the accountant, walked the jury through the financial evidence, making it clear that Daniel's scheme was sophisticated, intentional, and designed specifically to trap women in relationships they couldn't escape without losing everything. Amanda described the psychological manipulation, the way he'd isolated each of us from friends and family, making us dependent on him emotionally and financially. Katie explained how the trust agreements were designed to make divorce financially devastating, ensuring we'd stay married to him even if we discovered the truth. Tina detailed the life insurance policies, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the entire infrastructure of fraud he'd built over 15 years. And when it was my turn, I sat in that witness stand wearing the necklace, the same necklace that had started everything. "Why are you wearing that?" Daniel's lawyer asked during cross-examination, clearly trying to suggest I was being theatrical. "Because he gave it to me as proof of love," I said clearly, and it turned out to be proof of fraud. The safety deposit box number engraved inside led me to discover 7 marriages, 7 life insurance policies, and a scheme to financially trap and potentially profit from the deaths of 7 women. I wear it to remind myself that the smallest clues can reveal the biggest truths, and that when something seems too good to be true, it's worth investigating why. The jury deliberated for less than 8 hours. Guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity fraud, bigamy in 7 states, money laundering, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, tax evasion. The judge sentenced him to 32 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. He'd be 91 years old if he served the full sentence. As the bailiffs led him away, Daniel looked at each of us sitting in the gallery, not with remorse, not with apology, but with something that looked like disgust, like we'd betrayed him by refusing to stay silent. That's when I knew we'd done the right thing. A man who looked at his victims with disgust instead of regret was a man who would have done this again and again and again to however many women he could manipulate. We'd stopped him, not just for us, but for every woman who might have come after us. The asset distribution took another 6 months. The courts liquidated everything: the offshore accounts, the shell company assets, the houses. After legal fees, penalties, and restitution to the insurance companies he'd defrauded over the years, there was $11.2 million left, divided 7 ways, $1.6 million each. Not the fortune we thought existed, but enough to rebuild, enough to start over, enough to create security for ourselves that didn't depend on a man's lies.
Sarah used her share to buy a small house in Asheville near her family, not a house someone gave her, a house she owned in her name with a mortgage she could afford on her teacher salary. Margaret invested hers, started her own graphic design agency, hired 2 employees. She was building something that was truly hers. Jessica put half in savings and donated the other half to domestic violence organizations. I want other women to have the resources to escape that I wish I'd had, she said. Rachel paid off her student loans, invested the rest, and kept working at her accounting firm. I don't need a dramatic life change, she told us. I just needed justice. Now I have it. Amanda used hers to fund her book tour and her consulting business. She was becoming a nationally recognized expert on financial fraud in relationships. Katie invested in real estate, legitimately this time, with her own company, her own rules. She was thriving. Tina used her share to expand 7wives.org into a full nonprofit with staff and resources. She was helping hundreds of women navigate the aftermath of fraud. And me? I put mine in a trust for my future. Maybe for kids someday, if I could ever trust someone enough to have them. Maybe for early retirement. Maybe just for the security of knowing I'd never have to depend on anyone else for my survival again. I also kept teaching. My 4th graders didn't know about my past, didn't know why Miss Morrison sometimes seemed sad or distracted. They just knew I showed up every day and cared about them. That was enough. 1 year after the trial, the 7 of us met in person for the first time all together. We'd been on video calls countless times, but we'd never all been in the same room. We chose Asheville, Sarah's city, and rented a house in the mountains for a weekend. Just us. No media, no lawyers, no one analyzing our trauma for public consumption. We cooked together, drank wine, told stories, laughed, cried, and slowly, painfully started to heal. "Do you ever miss him?" Margaret asked on the last night, sitting around the fire pit as stars filled the sky above us. Not the real him, obviously, but the version of him we thought we knew. Sometimes, I admitted, I miss feeling loved. I miss thinking I had a partner. I miss the life I thought I was building. But none of it was real, Katie said softly. Our love was real, Sarah countered. Our hopes were real. Our commitment was real. Just because he was fake doesn't mean we weren't. That became our mantra over time. We were real. Our love, our trust, our vulnerability, our humanity, all real. The fact that we gave those gifts to someone who didn't deserve them didn't diminish their value. It just meant we needed to be more careful about who we gave them to next time, if there was a next time. None of us were rushing into new relationships. Some of us were starting dating cautiously. Some of us were embracing single life. Some of us weren't sure yet what we wanted. But we all had each other. 7 women bound by shared.
"Promise me something," I said as we packed to leave on Sunday morning. "Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter where life takes us, we stay in touch. We keep this connection." "Always," they said, one by one. "Always." 2 years after the trial, Amanda's book was published. The 7 Wives, How One Man's Fraud United 7 Women, hit the New York Times bestseller list. We all went on tour with her, doing panels and talks, sharing our story, helping other women recognize the warning signs. 3 years after, Tina's nonprofit expanded to 10 cities, helping hundreds of fraud victims navigate the legal, financial, and emotional aftermath of deception. 4 years after, Sarah met someone new, a good man, a transparent man, a man who met all of us and welcomed our scrutiny because he had nothing to hide. They got married in a small ceremony in the mountains, and all 6 of us were there, crying and celebrating and hoping this time would be different. It was. 5 years after the trial, I got a letter from Daniel in prison.
His handwriting was the same, neat and controlled, but the words were different. "I know you'll probably never read this," it began. "I know you have no reason to forgive me or even think about me, but I wanted you to know that prison has given me time to think about what I did, to really think about it, not about getting caught, not about the sentence, but about the 7 women whose lives I destroyed for money. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. You were real. All of you were real, and I was the fraud." I read it once, put it in a drawer, and never responded. He didn't deserve my words, didn't deserve my time, didn't deserve my forgiveness. Maybe someday I'd feel differently. Maybe someday I'd reach a place of peace where his apology would matter. But not yet. Not now. Now I was focused on building a life that was mine, teaching my students, spending time with the 6 women who'd become my chosen family, learning to trust again, slowly, carefully, one tiny step at a time. The necklace sat in my jewelry box. I couldn't wear it anymore, but I couldn't throw it away either. It was evidence. It was history. It was the key that had unlocked the truth and changed 7 lives. Maybe someday I'd donate it to a museum, the necklace that exposed a fraud. Let it serve as a reminder that truth can hide in the smallest places and that paying attention to the details can save your life. Or maybe I'd melt it down and have something new made, something that represented who I was now, not who I'd been when I believed Daniel's lies. I hadn't decided yet, but I had time, I had freedom, I had 7 sisters who understood me in ways no one else ever would. And I had the knowledge that when my life fell apart, I'd done the hardest thing possible. I'd faced the truth, no matter how painful, and I'd survived. That was power. That was strength. That was everything Daniel had tried to take from me, but couldn't because it came from inside, not from him. We were the 7 wives, but we were so much more than that. We were survivors, warriors, truth-tellers, women who'd been.
Now let me talk to you, whoever you are watching this right now. Maybe you're in Charlotte, where I live. Maybe you're in one of the other cities where we lived. Maybe you're somewhere completely different. Miami, Seattle, Denver, Boston, Portland, Dallas, Phoenix, San Diego. Wherever this story has found you, drop your city in the comments right now. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you're doing. Are you in bed, on your lunch break, folding laundry, cooking dinner? I want to know who's here with me because what I'm about to say is important. If you've ever been in a relationship where something felt off, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it, if you've ever ignored red flags because you wanted so badly to believe in the fairy tale, if you've ever been made to feel crazy for asking questions or seeking clarity, if you've ever discovered that the person you loved was not who they claimed to be, this story is for you. And I need you to know something. It wasn't your fault. The women in this story, me included, were educated, intelligent, successful, careful people. We're teachers and nurses and accountants and designers and engineers. We're not naive. We're not stupid. We're not the kind of people you look at and think, of course they got conned. But we did because con artists are good at what they do. They study human psychology. They identify vulnerabilities. They create elaborate, believable narratives. They invest time and effort into making you trust them. Daniel spent years on each of us, years of consistent behavior, romantic gestures, demonstrations of love. He didn't rush, he didn't pressure, he built trust slowly, methodically, until we were so deeply invested that the warning signs were easy to rationalize away. He's just private about his past. He's just busy with work. He's just careful with money. He's just protective of his identity after a bad previous relationship. We explained away every inconsistency because we wanted to believe, because humans are wired to trust, especially when someone shows us consistent love and care. That's not weakness, that's humanity. But there are red flags worth watching for, lessons we learn that might help you. If someone is extremely vague about their past, consistently dodges specific questions, or has a history that can't be verified, pause. Ask more questions. A person with nothing to hide won't make you feel guilty for seeking clarity. If someone moves too fast, love bombing you with attention, gifts, and declarations of commitment before you've had time to really know them, be wary. Real love can be intense, but it also needs time to develop depth. If someone isolates you from friends and family or makes you feel like they're the only one who truly understands you, that's control, not love. Healthy relationships connect you to your community, not separate you from it. If someone has unusual financial arrangements that they can't or won't explain clearly, offshore accounts, shell companies, cash payments, multiple bank accounts in different names, those aren't signs of sophistication, they're signs of hiding. If someone makes you feel guilty for asking questions or suggests that your need for transparency means you don't trust them, that's manipulation. Trust is built through transparency, not demanded through guilt. If someone's story changes in small ways over time, details that don't quite line up, inconsistencies they brush off as memory lapses, pay attention. Truth is consistent. Lies require constant management. But most importantly, if something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate why, trust that feeling. Your intuition is not your enemy. It's your protection. It's your subconscious mind processing thousands of tiny details your conscious mind hasn't caught up to yet. Don't let anyone, not a partner, not friends, not family, not society, convince you that trusting your gut is paranoia or suspicion or lack of faith. It's wisdom. The necklace that started my investigation was beautiful, custom-made, expensive, romantic, everything an anniversary gift should be. But there was a detail that didn't make sense, an engraving that raised questions, and instead of ignoring it, instead of telling myself I was being paranoid, I investigated. That investigation saved not just my life, but 6 other lives, because if I'd ignored my intuition, Daniel would still be running his scheme, still trapping women, still building toward whatever his endgame was. One woman paying attention, asking questions, and refusing to accept easy answers stopped a man who'd been getting away with fraud for 15 years. That's power. Your power, the power to ask questions, to demand truth, to walk away from situations that don't serve you, even when you've invested time and love and hope. If you're in a relationship right now that feels off, that has warning signs you're ignoring, that makes you feel anxious or controlled or uncertain, I'm giving you permission to investigate. Check public records, Google their names, search social media, talk to their friends and family, ask direct questions, and demand direct answers. Hire a private investigator if you need to. You're not being crazy, you're not being paranoid, you're being smart. And if someone reacts to your reasonable questions with anger, deflection, or guilt tripping, that tells you everything you need to know. People with nothing to hide don't punish you for seeking truth. Now, if you've already been through something like this, if you've discovered betrayal, fraud, or deception in your own life, I want you to know you will survive this. I know it doesn't feel like it right now. I know the pain is overwhelming and the betrayal cuts so deep you can barely breathe. I know you feel stupid, ashamed, like you should have known, should have seen it, should have protected yourself better. But you're not stupid. You're human, and humans trust. That's not a flaw. That's what makes us capable of connection and love and community. The person who betrayed you, they're the problem, not you, not your trust, not your love. Them, their choices, their deception, their moral failure. You get to heal from this. You get to rebuild. You get to become someone even stronger than you were before. And you don't have to do it alone.
The 7 of us found each other through the worst circumstances imaginable. We became family because we understood each other's pain in ways no one else could. You have people too. Maybe you don't know them yet. Maybe they're in the comments of this video right now, reading your story and thinking, me too. Maybe they're in support groups or therapy rooms online. Find them, connect with them, let them help you carry the weight until you're strong enough to carry it yourself. And when you are strong enough, you can help someone else's carry the weight. That's how we heal together. That's how we prevent this from happening to others. That's how we build communities of people who refuse to be silent about betrayal and fraud and manipulation. Before I go, I want to ask you for something. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, if it taught you something, if it reminded you to trust your intuition. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like this one, stories of women and men who faced impossible situations